17 weeks pregnant, I can't believe it. It's just flying by. I am feeling fine. Again, I still feel really kind of normal, and when I say normal, I just don't feel particularly pregnant at the moment. I just feel okay and my energy levels are good. One thing I have noticed is that my cravings, or my, what's the opposite of cravings? Aversions? The things I've gone off basically are less now. The things I didn't fancy when I was feeling at my most nauseous and just at my worst are actually quite appealing now, so I can just quite happily eat for two. And I'm trying to be so good with my diet. I learnt the hard way, definitely, with my first pregnancy, and ate, well, everything that I could find and put on. Do you know what, I actually stopped weighing myself towards the end because it was actually quite depressing, but I put on a lot of weight. I think it was around 3 stone, possibly 3.5. And I think it's almost like a rite of passage for your first pregnancy, because you think, right, my God, I'm actually allowed to eat whatever I want and not feel any guilt or any sort of like judgment about eating. So I just did, and yeah, as a result, it was quite hard to shift afterwards, especially since I got pregnant with baby number 2 within 5 months of having my first baby. So long story short, I'm trying much harder this time not to put on too much weight and not to go overboard. So I still allow myself treats, because if you can't treat yourself when you're pregnant, when can you? But I'm just trying to be sensible, is what I'm trying to say. I've told you about the dreaded jelly leg before, and that is definitely still hanging around. Thankfully, it's not a regular thing at the moment. I'm not getting it all the time. I definitely do feel it sort of just there every so often, and yeah, I'm not thrilled about that at all, as you can imagine. It's really irritating, but to date it hasn't got as bad as it did last time, so I'm hoping that it just kind of stays as it is. I can handle it a little bit every so often, because you just kind of shake your legs and it kind of goes away. If it becomes every day, then obviously I won't be very amused, but up until this point it's been quite manageable and not too bad at all. The other thing I've noticed this week is that my hormones are going crazy. We went to see Moana in the cinema the other day, and I was just a mess. Just Disney films are obviously quite, you know, they get you in the feels. I have been known to have a little weep at a Disney movie, but this was ridiculous. Every time something even remotely sort of emotive happened, I was like, I was just weeping away. I could feel like the tears sort of pricking at my eyes, and I thought, this is ridiculous. And I don't know if you've seen the movie. It is quite emotional and it's quite kind of heartfelt in parts, but I was just watching it thinking, the ocean is calling her. This is so emotional. And I was just like weeping away, and the kids, thankfully, and Dan didn't notice. They were oblivious. They were with their sweets and their nachos. And yes, I was sobbing into my giant tub of ice cream, which is apparently a new craving. That was my first hint that perhaps my hormones and emotions are slightly this week. So I'm going to do my very best to keep a lid on it and not terrify my family by bursting into tears at the drop of a hat. I feel good today though. So aside from crying at Disney movies, the only other thing I've noticed that's different this week is that I'm waking up in the night to pee all of a sudden. I haven't done that up until this point. I thought this was something that happened much earlier on in pregnancy, sort of like a hormonal thing when you're like really early on, but I didn't get it so much. But now I'm waking up most nights, and it's usually around the same sort of time. It's like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, which is really annoying, because that's when Aiden, my 3-year-old, seems to go through a sort of lighter period of sleep, and that is when typically, if he wakes up, he'll come into our bed. And I'm really trying to encourage him not to come into our bed at the moment in the middle of the night. I don't mind if it's sort of 6 o'clock in the morning and we can have a nice cuddle before we all get up for the day, but when it's 3, 4 o'clock, I'm trying to break him of that habit, especially thinking that, you know, when the baby's here, I don't want him coming in and then waking the baby up and then both of them being awake and blah. So it's when I wake up myself and need a wee at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm trying to tiptoe to the toilet without any creaky floorboards, or, you know, I'm not turning the light on, so I'm just going in the dark. It's not ideal, so I'm hoping this doesn't like last for the rest of the pregnancy. Does anyone else have sort of 17-week night peeing experience? That's a weird question to ask, isn't it? Does anyone else have it at this sort of stage and then it passed as they went further on? I'm hoping that it doesn't last for weeks and weeks and weeks, because there's only so quietly you can creep when you're 7, 8 months pregnant. The biggest development, I can't believe I didn't say this right at the beginning, but I've just noticed it on my notes, but the biggest thing that's happened this week is that I've felt definite 100% baby kicks and movements. It's not sort of wind gurgling around or anything else. It's definite baby kicks, and it's so nice to get to this stage, because especially in my case this time round, where my symptoms just seem to like drop off at about 9 weeks. I just seem to feel completely normal and not pregnant at all from about 9 weeks. So I've been looking forward to this point where you can definitely feel that the baby's in there and it's moving around and it's getting bigger and stronger and everything's fine. So I'm really, really pleased that that's happened this week. It's not strong enough yet that anyone else could feel it, like Dan or the kids, but I can definitely feel it, and that's the main thing. It feels kind of like a tapping or a kind of flicking feeling. It's not a full kick like you get later on in pregnancy, but it's like a tapping, I guess is the best way to describe it. Hello, I'm in here. Cravings wise, things are starting to change this week actually. After weeks and weeks of boring you all with I'm really craving olives and tinned mandarins, I'm still craving those things, but the sweet cravings are starting to kick in, and it's hard to distinguish if it's an actual craving or whether I just want it, so I'm telling myself it's a craving to justify it. But my daughter Merrin made some carrot cakes all by herself on the weekend for something she was doing for brownies, and I just couldn't stop thinking about them, and they're amazing. She did such a good job, but that's kind of kick-started my cake craving, and now I just want cake all the time. I could actually really go for one of those carrot cakes right now, but there aren't any left. So one of the benefits of having a 9-year-old daughter who wants to learn about baking is that I can encourage her to make me another batch of cakes just for me. So a little update on the baby. It's now the size apparently of a navel orange. I don't know what a navel orange is, so I'm just gonna imagine an actual orange, and it is measuring 13 centimeters in length and 140 grams in weight. My bump hasn't grown massively since last week, but it's definitely, as I said last week, it is definitely unmistakably a baby bump now. So that's everything from my 17-week update. I'm actually going to see a friend of mine next week who has just had her second baby. The baby's around 2 weeks old now, so it's still a proper tiny newborn. So I cannot wait to go and see her and have some cuddles and just remind myself what it's like to hold a newborn again. Even though I've had 3, you just forget how tiny they are and how those amazing baby noises that they make. So I'm really, really looking forward to meeting her and seeing my friend and hearing all about her labour and how things went. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. Please give it a like if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one.